Hey, FlossTube, Scott here with Chubby Nerd Stitches. This is Stitchy Sewed number 2. First, I want to thank everyone who viewed my first FlossTube, and for those who commented and subscribed especially. I knew that this community was really welcoming, but it was still very heartening to experience it for myself. So today, I expect this episode to be a little bit longer. I've got quite a bit of haul to go through. I've got a couple of new whips that I started, and I think I'm going to go through, or not, I think I'm definitely going to go through another one of the get to know your needle worker tags. This time, last time you got to know a little bit about me. This time you get to know more about my, I guess, my stitching habits, as it were. Um, as I get more comfortable as I do these, I'm sure my personality will come out more. You'll see that I love to laugh, especially dad jokes and puns. And in fact, I may laugh so hard at my own jokes that I'll have to stop the video and redo this. So hopefully that's going to start to come through more. So actually what I'd start with is the getting to know the needle worker tag, just to zip through these questions. I think there's 20 of them, so there's a lot this time, but they're all pretty simple one-word answers. So my favorite fabric, I don't really have one. I think I'm leaning more towards Lugana and the even weave types, but definitely the linens and things that are more, 28, 32 count type things. Um, Hoop or frame, I'm both. I prefer a frame, and you'll see that one of my whips, it's actually still on the frame because I was working on it before this video, and I will immediately continue working on it when this video is done, so I didn't want to take it off the frame. But for some smaller projects, I may use a hoop. And for hoops, I prefer the plastic Susan Bates hoops that have that little lip on the inner part, and it makes it much easier to keep the tension, and the knob on them is very easy to use. Do I use a stand or hold? Again, it's a combination. I have a stand. In fact, it's right next to me. But if it's a small project, I'll hold it. That's how I started cross stitching many years ago, and it's I've been trying to get in the habit of using the hoop more because, as you can see here, my carpal tunnel. Um, but it depends on the size of the project. My favorite time to stitch is whenever I get the chance. As I mentioned in the last video, I work from home, and conveniently, I have a lot of conference calls that I can stitch during that time. But I'd say the majority of my stitching is at night while I'm sitting here on the couch with my wife watching TV. Do I use a printed paper copy or digital? I will always print a copy. If I have a hard copy pattern, I have a copier printer upstairs. I'll make a copy of that, so I'm not marking up the pattern, and it's easier to highlight on paper than it is on some of that shiny cardstock. Um, am I a floss licker? Absolutely. When I was in 5th grade, we had home ec, and that's where I learned how to use a sewing machine and to sew. And our teacher at the time, I can't remember her name, but she would call it slickum. So she'd say, if you want to get that thread through the needle, put a little slickum on it, and then put it in your mouth. And I am an unabashed licker and an unapologetic floss licker. Do I hoard or buy supplies as needed? Previously, I had bought supplies as needed, and since I've started FlossTube, I guess to give me something to talk about, I've become a bit of a hoarder. In fact, I've got so much haul that I'm splitting it up from this video and the next one. My favorite floss, I can't say that I have one. If we go by what I have the most of course, it's DMC because of the color variation. I am doing something on Gentle Arts now, and I got to say, I don't really love the floss. I'm finding that it's bunching up a lot more, no matter how short I've made it. I think it could be something in the way I stitch. And I do use thread magic on it, and it still does that. So, um, am I a serial starter, or do I have one whip at a time? I used to be a monogamous stitcher. I'd start a project and I'd see it through to the end. And as I talked about with Spirit of the Sockeye, that's been a whip for 18 months now. So I think that I'm going to start to become a serial starter. I think based on my personality, that's going to work a lot better for me. So I can have a choice of what to work on, so that when I do get that stitch fatigue, I don't just stop completely. I can move on to something smaller, easier, different. Um, do I have more FFOs or UFOs? Definitely FFOs. I don't have any UFOs at all. If I start something, it's going to be finished at some point eventually. Do I watch TV while stitching? As I mentioned, my favorite time to stitch is while watching TV. I listen, I guess, to the TV, and I look occasionally. But I definitely spend time in front of the television while I'm doing my stitching. Do I mostly stitch alone or ever get together? I have never stitched with another person. The closest I've come to that is my aunt back in 2005 taught me how to knit, and she and I knitted together while she was teaching me. But then after that, I was on my own. I don't knit anymore because while I lived in Alaska, I mentioned in my last video, I was knitting a lot because I had use. Even though I'm in the Northeast here, we do have cold winters. Um, I'm not a cold weather person and I don't have use for those items. And once I learned how to sew and things could be made that much faster, knitting lost I lost interest in knitting completely. And I know a little bit of crocheting because I taught myself how to crochet a few things for some embellishments on the knitting that I was doing. Um, do I like to experiment and alter things, or do I do them as written? I am not. I like to say I'm not really that creative or artistic, and that's one of the reasons I do cross stitch. Give me a blank canvas, I don't know what to do with it, but give me a pattern or a recipe with food or anything like that, and I will follow it and I can get it done. So if somebody else has done the artistic work of creating it, I can follow what they've done and put it together. Now, I don't have an issue with switching colors. I think I could do that, but I tend to really enjoy a pattern when I see the sample, and so I want to stitch it the way that it was stitched. Do I bobbinate my floss or not? As you may have seen, those of you who follow me on Instagram know I do, because I posted a shot of a bunch of bobbins. That works for me. I have several hundred different DMC flosses, and that's the way that I like to keep them together. I like that you can write the number right on the bobbin, and it makes for easy storage and easy finding it when I need to use it for me. Do I start a project in the middle or at the corner? That depends. Or no, that doesn't depend. I don't start in the middle. I'm a gritter, and well, you'll see on one of my whips, I'm not gridding, and I'll talk about that then. But I tend to grid, and I am a color completer, so I'll start with the first color on the list, or maybe the color that has the most. It depends, and I will do all of that color, mark it off, and then move on to the next one. But again, that's not a hard and fast rule, as you'll see when I show you my whips. Um, do I have a whip rotation? Not yet. I think that I may eventually get there. Do I have use a timekeeper or keep track of how long it takes? I basically have, or not basically, I just have an Excel spreadsheet. I plug in the pattern, when I started it, when I finished it. That's pretty much all that I track at this point. Do I use the parking technique? I don't, but I don't do, I think that's best for full coverage, and I don't do a lot of those. So I think that there's a chance that I could try it, but I don't know for sure if I would do that. Do I keep my orts? I don't. They go in, I keep a mason jar that I put them in, and they look pretty enough in there, but once it's full, it goes in the trash. And do I like to have a snack or drink while stitching? I like to think that I do. I won't snack while stitching because my hands, as you might be able to see, because I have to film this without the air conditioner because it's loud, I'm probably sweating already. I'm a big guy. I'm a hairy guy. I sweat a lot. So my hands would, I have to wash my hands several times while stitching just for my own oils. But if I was eating something, it would just be all over. Now, drinking, yes, I always have a drink next to me when I'm doing that. So hopefully now you know a little bit more about me as a stitcher, and I'll move into the whips portion. And I've got two this week. I did not do any additional work on Spirit of the Sockeye. I think I finished the last, I had about 12 or 13 red stitches to go. I did those and I put it away. But I did, again, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen these two. But my first one, and as a start this week and also a whip, is, I'll show you this is American Kestral by Susan Pope. This is the May 2013 issue of Stitcher's World magazine. It is on the cover. And this one, as I mentioned a few times, I didn't grid because he's all of one piece. It's not all over. Everything's connected in this one. And I wanted to see it come to life. So I didn't do my usual complete a whole color. I started at the upper right because of how he is oriented in here. But as you can see, and I don't know how well you can see, but American Kestral has a head. And even without the back stitching, I love this head. I think he is very regal. I can't wait to see what happens when the body starts to fill in. This is the called for DMC threads on 28 count cream cashel linen that I dyed with tea, which is what was called for in the pattern. So again, as I talked about, I like to do what's called for in the pattern, and I'm really enjoying this guy. So hopefully you'll see a bit more on him. Then my second whip is something, patterns that I wouldn't have said that, oh yeah, I'll end up doing those. It's a Blackbird Designs, and I don't generally go for the primitives, but this particular pattern is going to be for my wife. Our anniversary is coming up in September. Her favorite flower is forget-me-nots, and as soon as I saw this pattern, I said, well, it's got to be for her. So here is, ooh, trying to get the glare. Here is the Blackbird Designs forget-me-not. It is number 3 in the Abecedarian series. I don't love how the alphabet looks, and I changed the monograms on the little urns, but I got a pretty good start with that this week. And again, this is going to be the one that you'll see that is on my scroll frame still. I got the 2 urns mostly done. I ordered this from the Beach Cottage Stitchers, I believe, as a kit, and unfortunately one of the flosses they were out of, which is called Brandy, and it's those empty squares you'll see in the urns down below. But I did what I could because I wanted to get this one started because my wife is away this weekend at a dog show, and I knew that not only would I get the alone time that I love, even though I do miss her when she's gone, I was able to work on this, which is a gift for her. So I'm liking how the green, the foliage is turning out of that, and you'll see that the urns have the M for Michelle and S for Scott. But this isn't a pattern that I'm loving doing, and I don't know that I would do another Blackbird Designs after this. I say that, but as again, I will break every rule or quote rule that I make while doing this. So those were my 2 whips for this week. One thing that I have a lot of thoughts about what I want to do with this channel, but I want to make sure that I stick with it first. So I'm not going to get fancy with title cards and cold opens and all that kind of stuff. That is plans. Those are plans that I have for down the line, or I would like to do, but I want to make sure I stick with this and continue to enjoy it. One thing I thought of was I could name my segments. And when I was thinking about what would I call whips, for those of you who like Anchorman, I think whips could be something like 60% of the time. It works every time, because when you're talking about a whip, it's what percentage done am I? So I thought that was kind of funny. Your mileage may vary on that one. Next, I don't have any, this will be sort of starts and haul combined. I'll go through just my materials first because I got a few things, nothing crazy there, and then go through the several charts I have. So here's just a big bag of DMC and Weeks Dye Work flosses. I haven't worked with Weeks Dye Work before, but I'm not impressed by that floss when I see it. But I don't generally go for over dyes. I like symmetry. I like a color to be all the same color. I don't enjoy variegation. And in fact, the same thing with hand-dyed fabrics, but as you'll see, I got 2 of them anyway. So again, breaking my own rules. But we'll see how they turn out when I stitch with them, because obviously when it's sitting there in a hank, it looks very different than when you stitch with it. The same thing with yarn when you're working with that. Then I got some fabric. So I've got another thing of 28 count cashel black linen, and you'll see what this is for when I show you the patterns. I got some 28 count black Jobelin because this is going to be for another pattern I have in there. I really like the even weave and the texture. It feels Cashel was the first linen I ever worked with, and I like the softness of it, but I think I like the feel of the Joblin better. I've got 36 count Wren Edinburgh linen. This, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this yet, but I actually kind of quite like it. Now, this one is a Picture This Plus gingerbread 32 count Lugana. It is an entire yard of this gingerbread fabric. And this one, like I said, I generally don't go for the hand dyes and that sort of thing, but I really quite like this one. It's very rich, warm brown. And the reason I got so much of this is because I'm going to modify one of the patterns that I will show you. In fact, it's probably the first pattern I'll show you in just a bit. And the last piece I got is 28 count Whispering Pine linen. This is the called for fabric, and it is very pretty for one of the patterns I'll show you here, but I don't think I'm going to use it for the pattern that it's called for in, because I don't think it goes with that pattern. Speaking of patterns, we'll move on to them. This first one, and this will be the real rule of my channel, is that I will break all of my rules. Anytime I say, oh, I don't generally like those things, or I don't do that kind of thing, I'll do it. And this one, obviously, anyone who's watching this has seen other FlossTubers. I don't have any. I don't think you found me first. Let's just put it that way. And maybe you did, but Pam and Steph, or Pam from Pam and Steph over at Just Keep Stitching, everybody knows about her mother's tree, and I had to get that pattern because I love it. I'm not going to do anything with people on this. I think with the dogs, I'm going to do something, and again, probably for my wife, I'll do something with the dogs that go way back to the foundation dog of her lines, and I think that there will be some modifications. I really like when Pam and Barbara were kind of doing dueling Mother's Tree. I like that Barbara did the trunk in brown, and I really enjoyed that. The next one is actually, it's stitching related, but it's not a cross stitch pattern. I don't have a single project bag. I know, gasp, clutch the pearls. It's but I can sew, and I'm pretty good at it, and I have done many by Annie's patterns. And project bags are actually pretty simple construction, so I didn't think I needed a pattern, but I like to support by Annie's whenever I can. So this is the project bags of 4 different sizes using vinyl, and I don't know if by the next video I'll have one made, because I have tons of fabric that I'm going to use. This may end up being a Star Wars fabric. I don't know. Maybe even my Star Trek stuff. But I will be making some project bags for myself with vinyl. Moving on to cross-stitch patterns. This one I've actually had for a while, but it is going to be moved into the rotation. And it's a small picture, so forgive me if you can't see it. It's only 2 colors. There are not that many stitches, so it could be something pretty quick to stitch. And this is called The Lonely Mountain and Smaug. It's by Helena Kowalczyk, who is Cross Stitch for You on Etsy. That's a digital pattern that I'm going to enjoy. That's my nerd pattern. This pattern here is from Twin Peak Primitives, and this is what I got that Picture This Plus gingerbread, the full yard. It's called Coop Almanac, and this is one of those things where a year ago I wouldn't have seen myself stitching this. However, something about these chickens just got me. And rather than doing this all as one, I'm going to take each individual month and turn it into a flat fold so I can have it on my desk every month. And I'm going to make the flat folds myself, so that'll be a first too, so that'll be fun. In fact, I'm sure I'm going to film that at some point and share that with you all. A yard is probably overkill, but I really want to make sure that they end up individual and looking good. This next one is by FiddlesticksAU on Etsy. And this is another one that a year ago I wouldn't have thought I would stitch. I don't generally go for patterns that are just words, but here we go. Nerd alert. It is called Elevenses by FiddlesticksAU, as I mentioned. It's based on Lord of the Rings, and these are all the meals that a hobbit likes to enjoy in a day, and I guess I can be a hobbit in that case because I'll love those meals. So this will go on that black 28 count Joblin that I have, and that will be hung up in my kitchen once that's completed. This next one is, and you'll see, here's the other pattern. I'll be stitching something else for my wife. And I wanted to think of something unique, and I came across this from 1986. It is Lighthouses of the Great Lakes. My wife was born and raised in Rochester, New York, and down here at the bottom, in the middle here, this one is called Charlotte Lighthouse in Rochester, New York. It is a really pretty good likeness. These are small, and this is something I can stitch up pretty quickly and give to her, whether she wants to do it, store it at work or put it here. In fact, I might take this, do something similarly sized for me from Philadelphia, because that's where I was born, and maybe do sort of frame that up together. I've got just 5 more here. This is the next one is the first of a few from Crosswing Collection I talked about. Wildlife patterns and especially birds. And these two I just couldn't pass up. So this first one is Great Blue Heron, number 34. It's stitched over to, except for the eye, and this, I don't know if you can see here. Whoop. That dragonfly can be stitched over one. Doesn't have to, but I will. I really like this. Now, for anyone watching, if you could leave me a recommendation in the comments of your favorite fabric that evokes water or sky, because I'd also like to use it for, obviously for this one, but for this next one. This is number 52 in the collection. It is Belted Kingfisher. I'm so in love with this pattern. It's going to be hard not to just start stitching this right away, but as you can see, the sample was done on that green fabric that I showed you, but I don't like it on the green. I want to do this on blue because to evoke sky or water, because that's where the kingfisher would be. Again, his eye can be done over one, which I would definitely do. These colors are great. The leaves, the detail. This is just a spectacular pattern. The next two are by the same artist as Spirit of the Sockeye, and I had planned to get them. I think my original plan was finish this one first and move on to the next ones. But because all of the, over 2 with darker colors on black cashel linen wasn't hard enough for me, I decided go for broke and just do only dark colors. So there's gray and white and black, and this is Spirit of the Orca, also based on a photo or a painting. I'm not sure if it's a digital painting or not, by Blaine Billman. This one is great. This one is what I got the black cashel linen for. I will not start this until I finish Spirit of the Sockeye, because they're both such large projects for me, because they'll get boring and they'll be spread out. But that's definitely one. And the next one is very similar to that. It's based more on, the painting is not, doesn't have the Northwest Native people's motifs on it, but it's still pretty awesome. And this is called Northern Lights, and it's just your common loon taking off or landing, whatever he's doing. All of the detail in the water. It's just another great pattern that I really am excited to work on. And the last one is another old pattern. I found this on eBay for really cheap. I don't love it, but I like it. What I really like about it are the trees and the snow in the background, actually. But this is Richard Luce's Totem from Charts Color or Color Charts. This is from 1990. This is your bald eagle on the totem pole. Like I said, I really like how those trees and the snow are done in the background. It just kind of spoke to me. I don't like the dated frame that they have in the picture, but I wouldn't use that, so I'm perfectly fine with that. So that's quite all right. So that's it for the portion of my haul that I'm going to show you this week, which was quite a lot. I don't have any finishes from the last week. I do have an idea for what I'm going to call finishes, and that might be, I got 99 problems, but a stitch ain't one, because I don't have any more stitches to put on it. But we'll see about that. I'll ruminate on that one, see if I still think it's funny in a week or not. I like to do, next I guess I can move on, or I don't guess, it's because it's on my agenda here. FlossTube shout-outs. In this one, I'll shout out one channel each week. Like I said, I'm not naive. I don't think that anybody's finding me first. And I feel like I want to thank you to the 40 plus people who have subscribed so far, and I think it's 160 views, way more than I expected to get, but thank you so much. But one of the reasons that I'm doing this is because Pam and Steph have Just Keep Stitching, and everybody knows who they are. But they're genuine in their videos. They're long videos. I'll give you that. But I watch them. I can't just turn it off and be like, oh, I'm done, or I don't want to skip that part. I want to watch the whole thing. I want to hang out with Pam and Steph and be friends with them. And Pam really reminds me of my aunt who passed away a few years ago. So Pam and Steph, keep up the great work. The last thing I'll talk about is my quilt of the, week so far. I will mention that I'm going to try to do these weekly, but if that becomes too much, it may go bi-weekly if there's not a whole lot going on. But I'll keep you updated on that. This quilt is the largest quilt I've ever done. It's almost queen size. The pattern is called the Missouri Star, and that's this pattern here. You can't really see the whole thing, but it's half square triangles here, and then this is sort of quarter square triangles. The white fabric is Kona Cotton Snow, which is my go-to white fabric. It's not as bright as Kona White, and I kind of prefer it. This is the Star Wars... I don't remember which exact Star Wars fabric it is, but it's by Camelot Prints. I want to say, it's Star Wars Force Awakens 10-inch squares or layer cake. And this wasn't an ideal fabric to choose for this this pattern, because a lot of these that you can see, they don't read as solids, and you kind of need them to read as solid for this pattern to work. But it's called Missouri Star. I wanted to make a quilt called Missouri Star Wars, and that's what I did. And I really like the orange that's on here, and this red that you may not be able to see. I wasn't as careful as I should have been, and you'll see, I can't see you right here, but there are a few where I've lost my points. That's on me. I'm an experienced enough stitcher or quilter to know what to do to make sure I have those on there. But I also sent this out to Missouri Star Quilt Company to have them machine quilted, and the motif I chose, I don't know if you can see it, is the Star Wars motif. So there's X-Wings and TIE Fighters and little loops. It is, I think there might even be a Death Star motif in there. This is one of my favorite quilts. It combines my love of nerdy things and my love of quilting. So I wanted to share that with you all today. Please find me on Instagram at ChubbyNerdStitches. I post there. I try to post at least once a day with some updates. We'll see how we go with that. And the last thing I want to mention is I didn't put it in the notes, and I should have, is one of the things I didn't mention in the last one. That's my other hobby is gardening, and I apologize. I may have some dirt under my fingernails that you may have seen, but because I was harvesting some beets this morning. I love vegetable gardening. I always have. I've got more than 20 years of gardening experience, and it's just, if you're not from the area, a Jersey tomato is one of those things you grow up really coveting, and to grow your own is an amazing thing. So I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch my videos. Please leave comments down below, like the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to continue watching. In line with my jokes, I thought that I'd want to sign off in a particular way, and I couldn't really decide how to do it. I feel like somebody has already said, stay stitchy, my friends, which is, I think is kind of cool, but maybe something like, tune in next time, same stitch channel, same stitch time, same stitch channel. That might be a little hard to say with all that, but I'll work on something. But for now, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.